like that shit. Do that again. What do you mean? You just gonna let this sit there? I'm not wrong. What do you mean it kind of aroused him? Who said that? Which of your sources said that? I feel like Billy Bob and whatever who's reading off these things on their mockumentaries or whatever this shit is just living a double life here through our boy, whatever his name is.
Gary.
Brigglehart or Ridgeway. I don't know, isn't there a heart guy?
No, we're moving on. We have a lot to tell. 20 minutes in. I don't know which source I got that from.
Yo, you're gonna drop a bombshell that all this shit around
That is
him.
not a bombshell.
That's not a bombshell? I mean, we get that he's gonna kill people and he's gonna hide the bodies so he'll get caught. That's the stuff we all know. But this is the interesting bit.
But a lot of times that's why they do it. They're aroused by it.
Yeah.
Okay. But nobody's going to question the arousal?
This is from some profile that somebody did on him. And he may have said it later in, like, a tape or something. A lot of times these serial killers are interviewed, like, later in prison and things like that, and they'll say things like that to psychologists.
Okay, all right. So we'll just take that little bombshell at face value then.
Yes. That's what we're doing right now. So Gary's dad, though, he wasn't as argumentative as his mother. He would tell Gary work stories that really impacted Gary's emotions. So, for example, his dad was he was a public bus driver. 2, he worked in a mortuary, part-time for both. But the stories would be mortuary stories, and they were often about how coworkers would engage in acts of necrophilia, like with the bodies that came in. And he would tell his, like, young child this.
Those are great bedtime stories.
Yeah. Evan's face. Evan looks stunned.
Who are these people?
The Ridgeways. Okay. His dad disciplined Gary by spanking him, and they would also withhold food from Gary and his brothers. So Gary and his brothers would, like, after school, they'd break into their own, like, pantry and try to open cans of things to eat them because they were so hungry, like canned corn and stuff, like, because they were not fed enough.
I got sad fast.
Yeah, this whole thing is sad. Gary's school life, however, was a lot better than his home life. He had a difficult time with academic work because it was found out later that his IQ was a little bit below average, but still within normal range, but like on the lower end of normal. But he had a normal childhood experience. His classmates really liked him.
Nothing of this sounds normal so far. What do you mean, normal childhood experience?
Well, like at school.
In school.
At school.
At school.
Like a normal experience. Like that's the one place he got to be a kid.
Yeah, he did his work. He had a lot of friends. People thought he was fun to be around. They even said he was like really pleasant. So Gary's first shot at murder happened when he was only 16 years old.
Wow, that escalated really quickly.
Well, yeah, when
Gary had friends. He was called Care Bear. They loved him. They got him down at the soda fountain.
Gary took a 6-year-old boy into the woods.
Oh, Jesus. How fucking dark is this going to be?
Stabbed him in the ribs and then walked away laughing. The 6-year-old boy survived, but nothing happened to Gary over this incident.
What year is this?
This is when Gary was 16.
16,
and he was born in...
65?
He was born in 49. Yeah,
so 65.
In 1965. So this is when Gary was in high school. When Gary was in high school, he played football. He had no problem getting girlfriends or making friends. He was just like a likable, normal guy, even through high school. Except for this weird situation where he stabbed a boy in the woods.
Oh, yeah. Don't mind that.
Just ignore that part.
A little blip. Care Bear had a bad day.
Because
Care Bear shanked a 6-year-old in the woods. What the fuck? You didn't tell me this was going to be so fucked up.
I asked you if you knew what this podcast was about.
Yeah, but like,
Okay.
Why'd you go for this story? Is there a lot more? Don't look at it. Oh, fucking cock!
I told you
There's like 20.
Can we talk about how you clearly have not listened to our other episodes?
No, I have. It's just like the level of well, I don't listen to the really violent ones because they make me sad.
He's listened to Cruise Ship Crimes. That's the only one. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Okay, so because of Gary's academic struggles, he didn't graduate high school until he was 20, which was it wasn't normal then, but, like, you were allowed to go into high school, like, and get held back a couple years, whatever, which isn't really the case now. But when he did graduate high school, he married a woman named Claudia Craig, who was his high school sweetheart. They had a super adventurous sex life.
Again, you just rail your way into these.
They did have
completely
They had, like, sex outdoors.
You don't
cars,
set these up, do you? You just, like, run right into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got married? They were like, "Oh, fucking in the woods."
Yeah, that's part of the story. We'll see why later. It becomes relevant. But then Gary decided to join the Navy, the same year that they got married. So in 1970, Gary was sent to San Diego with the Navy.
He probably read your book that's sitting over there and got super interested in Scuttlebutton.
Yeah, and that's what lowered his
Gary
morale.
scuttlebutted his way to San Diego.
It's not a verb. It's a thing. God,
It's a verb now.
it's a scuttlebudding.
Yeah, he scuttlebutted his way.
No, you don't. Okay.
He did. But then he learned that Claudia was doing some scuttlebutting on the side and had an affair while he was in San Diego.
Oh, Jesus.
They were only married for a year, and Gary filed for divorce because of Claudia's affair. And then Gary was honorably discharged in 1972. So he was only in the Navy for 2 years. I'm not sure why he was honorably discharged, but he was.
Yeah, you can get out after 2. Depending, back then. What year? 70?
Yeah, 72 he got out. So back in Seattle, Gary got a job painting designs on trucks. And at this time, he met Marcia Winslow. And he actually met her by pretending to be a police officer and pulling her over in a fake police stop. That's how he met his second wife.
And she was like, "Oh, okay, you're not a cop."
Well, when
when
he pulled her over, she was like, "What happened, officer?" And he's like, "Actually, I'm not a police officer, but I really wanted to be, and the department turned me down."
He said that?
Yes.
Man, the 70s were a different time.
Wait, so he was just pulling people over?
Yeah, but and then he would he was like
that
pretty.
sounds like a
Just
Brett
kidding.
Kavanaugh stop.
Kavanaugh stop. However, you might like this part.
Okay.
Their sex life was also really adventurous.
Why would I like that? I don't give a shit about these people's sex life.
They would often.
That's like all you want to talk. You don't. When did they get married?
They got married. They also.
I don't know where they lived. They have
it's
any
still in
pets? Anything fun? They just go straight for the fucking in the woods and shit.
Okay, well, listen.
Okay.
They would often hook up in wooded areas, and later these wooded areas became the dump site for Gary's 49 known.
Are we gonna go through all 49?
Oh my God, no.
Thank Christ. Jesus, I can barely handle 2.
No,
Especially if we know the names.
we'll know some names. Gary's life normalized with Marcia. He was really good at his job, and his coworkers liked him a lot. He dressed really neatly, and on his breaks at work, he would study the Bible. He became pretty religious.
Oh.
In 1975, Gary and Marcia had a baby boy named Matthew. At this time, they joined a Baptist church and a Pentecostal church.
Okay, they double dipping in the churches. They going in. I have the Baptist bum me over. I got the Pentecostals to go to. You never double dip in Catholicism though.
Yeah, Evan's born and raised Catholic.
Yeah, I'm ethnically Catholic is what I like to say.
Okay. Gary started becoming fanatical about his religion, and he would cry loudly at church services people would remember. However, this newly found obsession with religion wasn't enough to smother his deep-seated tendencies.
It's like a night of the what is it?
Museum.
No. The museum? There's no fucking happy Teddy Roosevelt here. No, the Night of the Hunter, which came out in 1952.
Nobody knows.
Very
what that
similar.
is.
It's like considered one of the first horror movies ever.
Oh.
Very similar. Like he's a serial killer that.
Isn't that what Ronald DeFeo was watching the night he killed his family?
He's like
I didn't mention
guy
that in the
gets super.
podcast.
He's
I
like
don't
a
know.
He was
super
watching, like, a
crazy
weird horror
Baptist guy who kills all these kids.
Okay.
It's weird.
Well-
52 is early for that sort of shit too.
One night, Gary tried to choke Marcia, his wife, after a night of drinking. She screamed and fought and then let go. They were outside kind of standing by their car. They had just got home. He ran around the car they were standing by, came up around her, and then tried to convince her someone else had ran up and choked her. He's like, "Oh, it was someone else. I was on the other side of the car."
That
She's like, "I
sounds like-
saw you do it."
It's like when you walk behind someone and you stand on their right and you tap their left shoulder so they'll turn to the left, and you're like, "Just kidding, I'm right here.
That's the
It
most,
wasn't me."
This is the most Italian defense ever. Oh, I didn't do it.
Shaggy. Wasn't me.
Wasn't me. But she caught you on the counter.
Wasn't me.
Who's Shaggy?
Even had it on camera. Wasn't me.
Saw the marks on his
Who's it? Who is it?
Wasn't me. You've never
Is it
heard
a
the
song?
Heard the
song?
screaming getting louder.
Wasn't me.
No.
Hear the words that I told her. Wasn't me.
So Marcia also later said that Gary loved testing how silently he could sneak up on her. And she said he could be very silent.
Dude,
He was pretty good at it. The couple eventually got lazy with going to church. And throughout the rest of the 70s, Gary started coming home from work later and later. And sometimes he was wet and dirty with no explanation. And Marcia just didn't ask about this.
relatable.
Okay, I hope that's not that relatable. Marcia started getting really, really fed up with Gary and Gary's bullshit, and Gary's mom, Mary Rita, who still chose the clothes that Gary would wear, even though he's 30 years old now.
Oh, God.
Yikes, Amundo.
So in 1980, Marcia and Gary divorced. And this is around the time the Green River killings started.
Don't marry a man if his mom picks out his clothes.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Step one. That's your homework for this week.
That's your homework for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you have lifetime homework. Sorry. These killings may have started in the early 70s or even the 60s, but the first body wasn't found until 1982, but many of the bodies have never been found. So in 1982, two boys were riding their bikes on a bridge. Oh, there is a bridge in this story.
Yeah.
Over the Green River in Washington when they noticed a body caught on some branches, kind of wiggling in the... It wasn't wiggling, it was like bobbing up and down in the water below. The body belonged to Wendy Caulfield. Wendy was a 16-year-old, and she was found fully clothed with her tennis shoes on, dead in the water below. She was a runaway. She had been strangled with her own underwear.
How old is Gary at this point?
Gary's, this year, Gary, in 1982...
49,
So he's killing teenagers? Or is this just...
He's 33.
He's 33 now. He killed people, as far as we know, ages like 12 to 40s.
Oh, okay. So no,
Yeah.
It wasn't like a specific age
No,
group.
no, actually, we'll get into that, no.
Okay.
There had actually been more than 4 other strangulations in the area in the months leading up to this murder that weren't, like, ever put under, like, the name of Gary, but it's like he probably did those too. So that's why the count is 49, but, like, it's people...
Could be a lot more.
We think it's, like, into probably 90, about 71 to 90.
That's so many fucking people.
Oh, he's the most prolific serial killer in United States history. This year, Gary's personal life was also a mess, so in 82, he had 3 serious girlfriends on and off. He bought a house, and he started becoming extremely private versus, like, the friendly, kind of, like, normal person people knew. So it was unlike his personality before.
I could have 3 serious girlfriends in a year.
He was, like, dating them on and off all at the same time, but I don't know why they were cool with that, or if they knew. Gary started having financial problems, so he had this house he bought, and it had a side garage. So he rented the house part to a couple, and then he moved into the garage as, like, the landlord.
Oh, wow.
It was, like, a separate garage from the house. He also started seeking out sex workers on a regular basis, and they were usually young women who were runaways, who were either hitchhiking and or worked at, like, local topless bars. And these became his victims. The victims ranged in age, from 12 to 31, so I was wrong,
Okay.
It wasn't 40.
So kind of a specific age group.
Yeah, it was just young women.
Yeah.
Young women were kind of what he sought after. And usually he left them nude in wooden rivers or in wooded areas or river dump sites. Gary would often bring the sex workers back to his house, strangle them, then leave them somewhere. And like I mentioned earlier, some of those locations were places he had like adventurous sex with his first 2 wives, like in wooded
So they
areas.
were, places significant.
Yeah,
like
they
meaningful to him.
Yes, they meant something. He didn't single out a specific look or a specific ethnicity, which is a little bit unusual for a serial killer. He didn't care about physical traits, but instead he cared more about the ease or opportunity of an attack. So he was more interested in like how vulnerable the victim was, which would make sense for young women. You usually have less, if you're a young runaway, you usually have a smaller like support group versus if you're like a 40 or 50-year-old runaway, you're not really a runaway at that point. You have like a support group of other adults. Gary's MO was consistent. He would usually pick up a sex worker and coax them by showing them photos of his son Matthew. Like, oh, look at my cute son.
yeah.
I'm a dad.
Because people trust people, like, if they have kids or...
Exactly.
That's a tactic a lot of people... They'll just throw, like, an empty car seat in the back, even if they don't have kids, to pick up hitchhikers, because they think people will trust them.
Yeah, if they have, like, if it looks like they're a father.
Okay, cool.
Tip for you, Evan. Go put a car seat in
If you're
your car.
picking up sex workers, put a
Good.
car seat
Or
in there.
anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, I saw a thing the other day, and it made me laugh. It said, pickup artists and garbage men should switch names. It's pretty great.
Garbage man.
I got it. Yeah. I don't have any money for sex workers.
I like that that's what's stopping you.
I have to afford the bike somehow. I mean, come on.
That's true.
That's it, though.
Either way, you're riding something.
The bikes talk less.
Fuck you, Evan Party.
Less complaints.
Okay.
Sarah's burying this.
Yes. Gary would usually take the sex workers to his house or like his garage area, have sex with them, pay them, and then strangle them. Like it was really important to him that he like gave them money, even though he was going to kill them after.
Take it back.
Yeah, I'm sure he stole it back. I mean, He's gotta. So he began using items like ropes and belts. So he was a manual strangler, but then he started using these items because he started to get bruises and cuts on his fingers when they would fight back.
Okay, Evan, how do you feel
He
about the fact
upgraded.
that when she said he was a manual strangler, she was like, he like made a strangulation with her hands? How do you feel about that?
He was
I don't feel
manual. Like they,
She's
I'm
demonstrating.
not worried. I could take Sarah. Are you kidding?
He started using items like ropes and belts and stuff because he was getting bruises and cuts on his fingers and all those kinds of things when they would fight back. So to